Hello y'all and welcome back. In the last video, we looked at the first of the 4 Epicurean principles, don't fear God. So the second of the Epicurean principles concerns death, and here we do get into an area where, unlike the first principle, modern people do seem to care about what ancient people care about, and by that I mean when I poll my students on this, and I have just sort of impromptu over the years, both online and in person, very roughly 50% of my students say, yeah, I do fear death. And about 50% say they don't. And this does not, mind you, break down along religious lines in any way. There are religious people that both fear and don't fear death, and non-religious people that fear and do not fear death. It just seems to be a personal thing. And the Epicureans say, don't fear death. Here's the second principle. Death is nothing. So the second principle, death is nothing. And they put it this way for a very particular reason. They don't say nothing to be afraid of, or don't worry about it, or don't fear it. They say death is nothing because you just are physical. So you are physical stuff, a collection of physical stuff. Before you were born, you have no memories, right? Before the particles that make you up came together to form a being of sufficient complexity to have experiences, you didn't have experiences because you, quite simply, weren't there. But your death is what happens when the physical particles that make you up come apart so that you're not there anymore. So it's not that you'll be there, but your experiences will be good or neutral. You won't be there at all. So again, it's not that death is nothing to worry about or nothing to fear, but it's literally nothing. It's what happens when the physical particles that make you up come apart, so you're not there. Death is nothing. Okay, so don't fear God, death is nothing. The third Epicurean principle is this. What is bad is easy to endure. What is bad is easy to endure. Now, logically, if pleasure is the good, the only bad, the only thing that could be bad is the opposite of pleasure, namely pain. And the Epicureans say, when you think about it, pain comes in one of 2 varieties. So sometimes pain is very intense. You break a bone, you get some horrible cut or something like that, right? But in those cases, it doesn't last very long. You pass out from the pain. You get some drug or medication to numb the pain. You go into shock. Worst case, you die. But as we just said, that's not bad. In fact, it's nothing. Sometimes, though, pain does last a long time. You have the intense psychological pain of some great loss. Maybe a lower level pain of like being stuck in traffic when you're running late, which is extremely stressful. Or an even lower level pain of having to sit through, some kind of long, boring, painful line or lecture or whatever, right? Being on hold with AT&T customer service for 3 hours. It's happened to me. But in those cases, the pain, while it does last a long time, is not very intense. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is they say pain is, and they have the slogan, light if it's long, short if it's strong. Light if it's long, short si longa levis, si gravis brevis. Most of the Epicureans are writing in Latin, and they have this rhyming Latin phrase. So you keep this in mind. Okay? Now you might say, well, okay, but I'm not stupid. I mean, there's plenty of examples of people in history that have suffered tremendously intense pain that has lasted a long time, right? What about some person that's being tortured in some dungeon by some dictator for months at a time, right? And here's where the Epicureans really do differ, and other Hellenistic schools, I think, from philosophies that came before. At this point, an Epicurean would say, whoa, okay, let's all just take a deep breath. This is not Aristotle. This is not an attempt to create this cosmic interlacing system that is completely airtight and accounts for 1,000% of all possible counterexamples. Our philosophy is designed to help 99% of people get through 99% of difficult life situations. And it's not even designed to help get you through pain. Do you see? The philosophy is designed to help you deal with the anticipation of pain, because the anticipation of future pain causes you a lot of anxiety and worry. You say, oh, what if I lose my job? What if I get a bad grade on that test? What if that person doesn't text me back? I'm in this relationship. What if we break up? And the Epicurean response to that, quite frankly, is, yeah, you probably will fail. You probably will break up, but you know what? You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You've gotten through stuff like that before. Every human being that's ever lived has gotten through stuff like that before. You'll be okay. The pain will be very intense, but then it'll go away. Or it'll last a long time, but you'll be able to survive it. It's not that bad. Okay? What is bad is easy to endure. Very practical philosophy, okay? The fourth Epicurean principle, and this is, I think, the biggest, is the one that I think is most directly applicable to our life. And here it is. What is good is easy to get. What is good is easy to get. And the Epicureans say this is the point that most people miss. It's an obvious philosophical point, and most people miss it. All right, so this looks a little silly, but I really need to use my hands for this illustration here. So the Epicureans say, look, the final point, what is good is easy to get. So there's two ways the Epicureans say that people have been happy in human history. Here's the first way that most people choose. Okay, here's what you have and here's what you want. So you go to work on what you have. You strive and you sacrifice, you scrimp and save, you work really hard. You go, in other words, through all kinds of pain to increase your possessions, increase what you have. And after years of hard work, striving, and pushing, you find that eventually what you have matches what you want, and that is, of course, happiness. Having what you want is happiness. That's the way most people choose, and it's stupid. Here's a better way. Here's what you have, and here's what you want. But instead of going to work on what you have, go to work on yourself. Go to work on your own desires. Go back to that first EDQ question. How high maintenance are you? The Epicureans say, work on being more low maintenance. Work on being a simpler person, living a simpler life, taking delight in simpler pleasures, simpler foods, simpler clothing, a few simple outfits. Take contentment in the people around you instead of trying to find exactly the right people. Instead of fancy vacations, enjoy the beauty of the nature around you. Instead of fancy entertainment, enjoy a good book from the library. In other words, if you work on being content with the things around you, the things you already have, with simple fare, you'll find that in very short order, what you have matches what you want, which is happiness. They say you'll have the same level of happiness as the world's wealthiest billionaire with a fraction of the striving and pain. It's a much simpler and better way of achieving happiness. The four principles. Don't fear God. Death is nothing. What is bad is easy to endure, and what is good is easy to get. These four basic principles, they say, if you keep them in mind, if you repeat them, often in different rhyming slogans, will disarm 99% of the worries, fears, and anxieties that come your way. And if you combine this with a simple meditative practice of always being aware of the kind of thing that you are, they say you'll find that this tranquility stays with you all the time. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to hunt it down. You don't need to strive. The pleasure, this tranquility, is always right there. Simple Epicurean philosophy. Don't think, feel. All right, so that's Epicureanism. The second of the big ways that we've looked at of achieving ataraxy or tranquility. We'll look at the third, Pyrrhonian skepticism, in the next module. Thanks.